Hello everybody, Spooky Sane Woman here. Thank you for checking out episode, God knows who, of Seduce Me the Otome. Last episode, we made out with James. We did. And we passed out. I felt good. I didn't care that I was blacked out. I felt warm and fuzzy in the darkness. I never knew indulging in that kind of passion would be that good. I now just waited to awaken, hopefully in a good way. My eyes eventually fluttered open, adjusting to the sight around me. I felt familiar silks underneath me, letting me know that I was in my bed. I slowly sat up, stretching from the tiredness that still lingered. I felt a very soft pain on my neck and shoulders, and I could feel my swollen lips pulse gently and healing. However, when I looked back at my body, I saw that my shirt had been pulled back up and rebuttoned as if nothing happened between me and James. I was just missing my ribbon. Before I turned to get out of bed, though, I spotted my ribbon on the pillow beside the one I slept on. It was tied in a nice bow around a red rose that was freshly bloomed with a small note attached to it. I gently slipped the note from the tie and opened it to read it.
I apologize for indulging myself as I did. I hope that you will not dislike me when you awake.
Oh no, yeah, I totally hate you for having a consensual, nice... I stared at the note, unbelieving what I read. Why would I dislike him? I let it happen, and I enjoyed it. It was cute, though, to imagine him asking for forgiveness for something we both did and enjoyed. I brought the rose to my nose and gently inhaled its soft fragrance. I indulged myself too, James. I looked at the time out of curiosity. The large white numbers on my phone showed 5:31 p.m. Yikes! 4 hours of being knocked out, and I still feel tired. It was Sunday, so I was allowed to sleep longer if I wanted to. The remainder of the night passed by, surprisingly uneventful. The boys continued to train with each other, but were kind enough to stop and make me dinner. I was glad for that. Unsurprisingly, the food was perfect, but it felt a little empty without the boys to eat with me. They most likely had already eaten, but still, I felt lonely. I couldn't let it bother me. I ate and went back to my room to study and sleep. Surprisingly, I felt good going to bed that night. I felt like I could have a peaceful sleep after the previous rough nights I had. I felt good. I drifted to sleep and woke up almost flawlessly the next morning. No grogginess, no wakes, perfectly energized and bright-eyed. Man, how long has it been since I got that much good sleep? I looked at my alarm clock. I woke up 10 minutes before my alarm. Well, hey, I must be lucky today. Karma owed me some luck. After all I had gone through in merely a handful of days, I deserved to get some good luck. Ecstatic for the day ahead, I turned off my alarms before they could ring and got dressed. However, my phone started to quickly buzz from an incoming text. Huh? Who's texting me this early?
Yo, Anderson! You're carpooling with us from now on. We're not letting you waste your money on the bus. Get ready and be at your gate at 7 stat.
Okay. I smiled. My friends were the best. I couldn't drive it and didn't have a car, so it was awesome that my friends would let me carpool. And check the time. 6:30. Perfect. I can eat some breakfast before they come. I packed my bag and carried it downstairs towards the kitchen. As I entered the dining room, I saw a plate with eggs, toast, and bacon sitting on the table. A fresh steaming cup of coffee sat next to the plate with the sugar and creamer on the side. I walked to the table but couldn't believe what I was seeing. Who made this? As I spoke aloud, a small red note caught my attention. Have a good day. Yours. My heart skipped a beat as I finished. I could tell it was from one of the boys. Maybe it was from him? Yeah. I smiled before putting the note in my bag and eating up. The food was so delicious, I devoured every amazing bite. I looked at the time again. Time to go. I quickly rushed to the doors, checking myself in the passing mirror. I wasn't wanting to impress anyone, but I still needed to look decent. Before I reached the handle of the door, however, someone took my hand. Huh? I turned to see James, who was holding my hand back with a concerned frown on his face.
My name?
Your name?
My true name isn't James, miss. I want you to know my real name if something were to happen.
His true name? What did he mean? Why was he telling me this now? James gently pulled me to him and leaned close to whisper in my ear.
My name is Wastrel.
As he said his name, I could feel it lock in my memory. Something in my head would make sure I would never forget it. James pulled away and smiled at me, despite still carrying worry in his eyes.
If you are in any danger, call my name. events that'll come ahead.
I stared up at James, unable to say anything. I could only nod in response. James smiled before kissing my hand and heading into the dining room. Something told me that name would be used eventually. Right on cue, Naomi drove up to the gates with Suzu waving me down. I rushed out the door and we headed to school, talking about the homework and the coming day. We made it into the school without a hitch. Our lockers were in the same part of the hall, so we quickly unloaded what we needed to and got our important books and necessities. First incident of the day. As I walked towards Suzu and Naomi, who were both waiting for me on the opposite side of the hall, something hooked my ankle and made me fall forward. What? Ow!
Hey, are you okay? Who did that?
The three of us looked back to see Lisette and her gaggle of girls. Lisette had a complete look of innocence while the girls around here giggled to know tomorrow.
Why, you little... Suzu, don't!
I felt a giant fire of anger burn in my stomach as I stared at Lisette. Today was not the only time this had happened to me. However, it was now clear who was behind these incidents. Even if she was innocent, one of her goons did it. It was now obvious that Lisette was the mastermind just from the look on her face. She was no friend, nor would she ever be. I had to do something. I'm gonna stand up and walk away. 'Cause why bother? No. I wasn't gonna bring myself to her level. She was a bully, but I was not going to let her get to me. I had to be stronger than her, and only then would I have beaten her. I stood up and brushed myself off, pretending nothing had happened.
Anderson, you okay? That was a pretty bad fall.
Yeah, I'm fine. A fall like that is nothing. I merely smiled at them, not wanting to let them know the pain rushing through my body from that fall. My arms were quaking, my shoulders were pulsing, but I remained content-faced. I quickly gathered up my belongings and nodded to my two friends. Come on, we'll be late for history. Naomi and Suzu looked at each other before frowning and nodding to me. Naomi and Suzu flanked me as we began to walk to class, away from the gaggle of bullies. As we walked, I could barely see Suzu flipping the middle finger to the group behind us from the corner of my eye.
Friggin' bunch of Lisette feet lickers. That's gross, Suzu. It's true. It's all OMG! Lisette is the best! Let's follow her around because we obviously don't have lives.
Naomi and I couldn't help but laugh. The group behind us, however, did not like Suzu's words.
At least my dad doesn't screw around in the black market to keep a stupid casino running.
Suzu stopped. Naomi and I stopped as well to look back at Suzu, who was completely red in anger. Suzu slowly turned ahead to the group, glaring daggers at them.
Fuck did you just say?
I had to act fast. I placed my hand on Suzu's shoulder, gripped it tightly, knowing she would try to push my hand away. Suzu, they're not worth it. Let's just go.
No, I think it's about time we taught them some manners. Suzu!
I looked at Lisette and her group. Lisette had a widely amused smile on her face, which irked me to no end. Nevertheless, I knew that fighting wasn't going to get us anywhere. Let's go. I grabbed Suzu by the shoulder roughly, pulling her back to Naomi and me. Suzu tried to step towards the group, but Naomi held on to her other shoulder. We held on to Suzu, who fell against our hands as we marched to class. Surprisingly, the rest of the school day went off without another incident. I went to my class, had lunch, and was anxious to get home. As the bell rang for school to end, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. Huh? A text from Dad? I'll be picking you up today. Make sure you're ready to go when I get there. That's kind of a surprise. I quickly headed back to my locker and got my things before waiting for Naomi and Suzu.
Hey, are you ready to go?
Actually, my dad's picking me up.
Really? Okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. We'll drive home together next time. Tell your dad that we got you covered from now on.
Yeah, alright. Excuse me. Even while I laughed, something didn't seem right. My dad texted me to say this. Why was he going to pick me up? Had I done something wrong? I didn't know. I waved goodbye to Naomi and Suzu before heading off to the usual spot where my dad picks me up. I took the time to listen to my music while waiting. I need to go to another Rise of the Phoenix concert. Eventually, I had played the entire album with no one showing up. What the hey? Dad's never late. Especially not this late. I quickly dialed my dad's number again, but as soon as I pressed call, it disconnected and read a signal disconnection error message. What the? No signal error? How do I not have signal? I double-checked my phone and saw all 5 bars for signal. He must be in a dead zone. Before I could finish, a group of hands grabbed at my hands, feet, and covered my mouth. I screamed into the hand over my mouth, struggling to pull away from the hands grabbing at my limbs. It felt disgusting and scary, feeling their hands on me. It needed to stop.
Hey! Don't dirty up Malix's prey.
The voice, which sent a fearful shiver down my spine, whispered into my ear.
You're coming with me, Miss Anderson.
I couldn't have fathomed what was happening, but before I knew it, I was blindfolded and my limbs were quickly tied up. I felt myself being carried somewhere and then shoved into something that echoed the interior of a bus or a van. The doors closed and off I was taken, unsure of where I was going and why. All I knew was that I was in trouble. All I saw was darkness. I felt numb and I was taken to a place I didn't know of. I couldn't even move my lips to scream. Sounds zipped past my ears, first of the interior of the car, then the outside, then an echoey space with whispers and cackles of people vibrating through it. However, the wrappy around my eyes was eventually removed from my face and my bonds were cut. It took a little while for my eyes to adjust, but I found myself in a warehouse surrounded by devils, including Malix, who was smirking at me.
Nicely done! I'm sure those little shits will come running to find you when they realize you didn't return to your precious little mansion.
Malix walked over and set the barrel of his gun against the skin between my eyes.
It'll be so funny. They find your dead body instead.
Raystro! Raystro! All of a sudden, a bright purple light engulfed the room, causing the devils around me to cover themselves.
What the?
Gusts of wind rushed past me, almost forcing me back. I covered my face with my arms, bracing myself and standing my ground. I tried to peek through my arms to see what was going on, but the light continued to shine brightly. As the gust slowly started to die, the light began to fade, revealing James pointing a strange golden gun behind Malix's head. Oh, SNIBBITY. James!
It's alright. I'm here.
Malix stared wide-eyed behind him, unsure of what to do. He had no time to react in case James pulled the trigger. He was stuck, feeling the presence of James' golden gun that was ready to lodge a bullet into his skull.
Well, it seems like I finally have your cooperation, Malix. It took long enough.
You piece of demon shit! I could shoot you right
And what's stopping me from shooting you first? If you so much as flinch, I would pull this trigger and end you once and for all.
The remaining devils stared, trying to figure out what to do, help Malix or watch in silence. Eris, however, walked up beside me and crossed her arms as she watched with an amused smirk on her face. Malix growled, obviously annoyed at the predicament he was in.
What is something, pretty boy?
Just me wanting to do this.
With no hesitation, James quickly moved his gun and shot both of Malix's hands. The gun dropped from Malix's shot hand onto the ground as he knelt over in pain, holding his hands to his chest.
You son of a bitch!
Before Malix could finish his sentence, James aimed his gun once again at Malix's head, causing the devil to stop talking once again.
I didn't say you could speak. You want me to shoot you in the throat?
Oh my god, James! I stared at James in shock. Was he playing with Malix? He seemed to act like a cat poking a sharp claw at a wounded rat. It was warranted, but not what I expected of James at all. No.
I'm going to give you 3 seconds to get on your knees to beg for forgiveness. Or, the next bullet goes to your pathetic hellborn skull.
Malix hesitated but eventually ended up on his knees. However, as he settled onto the ground, Malix wrapped his arms around James' leg and dug his teeth into it. I gasped but remained still as I watched James aim and fire a shot into Malix's back. Malix released James's leg in shock, trembling at the newfound pain. However, for some reason, Malix didn't fall over and die. He remained still, staring ahead of himself in pure shock and pain. I could only watch in silence as James lifted his leg out of Malix's embrace and kicked Malix to the side.
Disobedient until the very end, huh?
The air was instantly instantly went from frantic to still in energy. What could have been described in tone as the color red quickly turned into a deadly mix of purple and gold as everything began to blend together once and all. Those were my high school colors. I hated it. I stared as James seemed to grow more menacing towards Malix. However, he quickly looked at me with a face of concern.
Please, forgive me for this.
I grew confused but wasn't allowed to think on it as James looked back down at Malix once again. James's eyes began to glow a bright gold as James lifted Malix by his collar and pulled him up off of the ground.
It's high time you discovered the true power of demons.
James's voice had changed, sending a large shiver down my spine. His appearance also started to change, but before I could see clearly what James was becoming, my eyes recovered.
It's me. Don't look.
I listened carefully and let the last two words linger in my mind. Don't look. Why? What was being hidden from me? I wanted to know, but something told me to obey Damien's command. I could hear Malix struggling to get out of Damien's grasp and the rich, bright sound of magic being cast. I struggled with myself to obey Damien's words, locking my arms to my sides to deny myself any chance to pull Damien's hands off of my face.
Let me go!
That did not sound like Malix at all.
As you wish.
The sounds of demonic screams and cries bellowed all of a sudden, causing me to tense up in Damien's hands. Oh my god. Malix began to scream in agony, straining as if he was being pulled away somewhere against his will. Malix's voice began to trail out into an echoey whisper as the magic sounds of the air consumed his cries. Soon enough, the cries and wisps of magic stopped, leaving the air as silent as it could be. However, Damien didn't remove his hands.
Jeez, James. Haven't seen you use that trick since the intruder in Demon Castle. But you're losing your touch. You even lost your glamour spell.
It couldn't have been helped.
Glamour spell? What did he mean? Why did James sound so different? Why was this being hidden from me?
It's a spell that makes us look human.
I froze. Look human? They didn't look like humans after all? What did they look like?
Like demons.
Again, very helpful! As if Matthew knew what Damien was talking about, Matthew spoke up, followed by the sound of a cork popping out of a bottle.
Well, not for much longer. Here.
Thank you, Matthew.
I could hear the sound of clinking, the small clinking of glass being passed before hearing James guzzle down a liquid of some sort. The stiff feel of the air around me gently began to warm back up, insinuating that everything had been returned to normal. Finally, Damien moved his hands from my eyes, allowing me to see around me once again. The devils, including Eris, had fled. Malix was nowhere to be found. The boys, however, had gathered around me, all of them, including James, looking like nothing had happened. What just... I tried to speak, but everything zipped around in my head at the whole event, and I felt like speaking wasn't possible.
Let's just get you home, miss. There's nothing more to see here.
I could only nod. What had happened boggled my mind to the point of disbelief. I was second-guessing everything, lost in a sea of what and how and when. As we walked out of the warehouse, I looked at James for some sort of sign that I wasn't dreaming. James kept his eyes forward, unable to look at me. It was over. Malix was gone, and the boys were finally safe. A wave of relief ran through my body at the thought of never having to deal with that group again. At the same time, a ping of realization hit the back of my mind. The boys were only going to stay until after Malix was defeated. That was our deal. And that's the end of the episode. Wow, James is completely freaking ruthless. Dang! Cool, I like it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. Share with your friends if they like absolute fucking murder. Bye-bye!